I was heavily invested in playing Astrologian in Stormblood. It was like near the end of Stormblood. I tried out the Astrologian, the version of it that was present at that time, and I was in love with it. I was pretty much maining it and considering continuing to main Astrologian, but then Astrologian got some pretty massive changes in Shadowbringers that streamlined things a lot, change buffs and to be, in my opinion, just less interesting, because instead of in fact, let me show you. For some of you, you might have seen this before, but what Astrologian cards used to be like compared to what they're like now. So this was from 5 years ago, old school Astrologian. For example, your card would do like 20% damage taken reduction. You could put, if you pulled that, that could be handy for a tank buster or something. Arrow would reduce weapon skill cast time and recast time, spell cast time and recast time. So this was excellent to put on somebody like a black mage, and it was really fun. If you pull an arrow and you have a black mage in your party, you're like, wow, it's like, feels like a unique thing that you're offering. Spear increased critical hit rate by 10%. And Ewer restores MP over time. Spire restores TP. Don't worry about TP. Don't worry about TP. But then you could, spread these effects over the entire party. So you could do an AoE version of this and give the whole party a MP regen, for example. And it was, to me, way more interesting to do that because you are offering... Like, there was more chaos, there was more variety. It's not just a flat damage buff. And I just thought it was more cool, a little bit more immersive. But after they changed Astrologian to be just flat damage buff for every card that you pull, I guess really lost a lot of interest in the job, which made me sad. And the other job that I'd played a good bit of was White Mage. White Mage being a job that... I like where they went with the Lily system and Blood Lily. Like, that's a fun button to press. But it feels like your end goal for playing White Mage, and most likely every healer, is, like, in an ideal situation, you're doing as little healing as you can, so you can do as much damage healing as you can. And in the case of White Mage, that often comes down to just spamming Glare. And that's just, like, that's not very interesting to me. Like, I need more to keep my interest because I am, like, super inattentive ADHD. So, like, that's why I think nowadays I still prefer Astrologian because it feels like there's more to do. But in general, it's just not... I don't think I've ever had as much healing in this game as I did when Astrologian was in the state that it was in Stormblood. Even if that wasn't, like... easy for them to balance, and it was sort of chaotic. I mean, I thrive on chaos, so I liked how it was back then. Are people complaining about healers again? First tier people complain that healers don't have enough to do. Then they give healers more stuff to do, and people keep complaining. Yeah, people are still complaining about healers because we're noticing that there's a lack of healers, and it's not something I've done a lot of in this particular expansion. Like, I really, like I said, fell off of healing in a big way after Stormblood and after Astrology got the changes. So I'm curious to see what people have to say about this. That's why we're going to watch this right now. More stuff to do. Healers still have nothing to do. Yeah, I mean, optimally, you are going to just be spamming your damage, and there's not a ton of different abilities to press whenever you're spamming. I mean, you're just spamming Glare on White Mage, but I don't have a lot of experience with Sage, full disclosure, like almost none. And I'm horrible at Scholar. So maybe if I tried one of those jobs, I would enjoy healing more, having more setup to do and more to plan ahead for. But before I go off on a giant tangent, we're going to go ahead and watch this video, and then we'll talk more about it throughout.
Greetings, travelers. It's me, resident scholar masochist, and now dejected degenerate weeaboo. Every job I touch turns to dust. In today's class, we are going to examine the green...
What job are you playing right now? You better not play Dancer. You better not.
Role type in Final Fantasy XIV. A topic that I'm sure people think I've talked about before, but you would be wrong. On paper, being a healer in an MMORPG means that you have to heal people and keep them alive.
Yeah.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah.
But what do you do with your time when you don't need to heal anything? Yes, you do damage. This is it. You now know how to play a healer in any MMORPG. I've educated you. I no longer need to make any guides.
Cool. Nice.
Obviously,
Okay.
healing is not technically this simple.
Wait, he
The
lied?
problem with games like these is that you need players to fulfill all role types in order for content to even be run in the first place. A problem that every developer has to try and find a way to fix so that people who play the only fun jobs in the game don't have to wait around for 45 minutes to get into a piece of required content in order to progress the juicy story, which is the only thing that people care about. Final Fantasy XIV healing has been through a lot over the years, going from the good old days of overhealing causing you to generate a fuckload of aggro and get beat to death.
Oh, he's a samurai main? Okay.
To the days of pressing cleric stance. What we have had since the introduction of Shadowbringers especially is a massive overhaul of the healing system in order to lower the barrier of entry to the point where any tadpole left out in the open to asphyxiate can maybe pick it up.
I mean, it's true because, like I said, I remember the Stormblood era where I was more invested in healing than I had ever been. And people would often say, oh, like to new players, people would come in and ask, what's a healing job that I can play right now? And people would often tell people, oh, don't play astrology if you're new. It's too high of a barrier to entry if you're new. It's going to be too complicated. It's going to be too much for you to figure out. Just don't play astrology. And I feel like maybe the devs heard people saying that and they're like, oh, well, we can't have people telling other people not to play certain of our jobs. Every job needs to be accessible for everyone. And maybe that's why we started down this road. But I also kind of feel like it's okay for there to be some jobs that have a lot of complexity and certain jobs that have less complexity. But even in the case of jobs that have, less complexity, there can still be more going on. I think Dancer is a perfect example of that. It's a job that it has a lot going on. It's not that hard to learn. Like, it's pretty straightforward to learn, but it's still really fun. So I don't know how they could apply that kind of logic to a healer, but...
What we are left with is about 1 billion changes and enough healers playing the game to finally make waiting around not take half an eternity. With so many changes to healing though, it now feels like fucking garbage. When you first pick up a healer in this...
So that's, a lot of people tell me that Sage is fun to play. Sage is a good feeling healer. I mean, this is fairly recent video, so... I guess he's going to address that too. People tell me that Sage is the healer that's most like healing in WoW. And like I said, I don't have a lot of experience on Sage, so I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say in the chat about that. Like, compared to the other healers, would you say Sage is the most fun one with the most to do? Like, does it really stand out as an example of maybe where they would want to go in the future with healer design? He said Sage is amazing, and then someone else says Sage is mega boring. Okay. It's really helpful. Cool. Okay. Okay. We should probably do, you know what? I should poll it. We should start a poll for that. Let's do it. Okay. Is Sage fun? Yes. No. Didn't try it. All right.
This game, it can be quite overwhelming as you look at your entire party's health bars and feel like the world is going to shatter at any given moment. Simply get good, scrub. You will eventually realize the ultimate truth. There is not a whole lot of outcoming damage at every second in this game, to the point where if you are new, you are probably way more focused than necessary. Even though I'm evil, I don't hate people who are new to healing for struggling at first, because everybody does. Everyone who tries to be decent at this game has gone through a learning curve, no matter how talented or perfect they may present themselves.
That's very true.
The downside is that being awful at healing sometimes has consequences in brain-dead content compared to being a DPS who might as well not exist in terms of being able to get from point A to point B. This is why healing has such a low focus on DPS buttons, so that you don't have to maintain some complex DPS rotation on top of keeping the party topped up. Except, not really. The thing that is stupid to me is that there is a leveling system in this game. Healing at first should be easy to pick up, but you would expect it to get a little more complex as you level. Instead, what you have is one filler button and one dot to maintain on every healer, and that is it.
Yeah, that's it.
You get to keep that from level 16 to level 90.
I'd always kind of wanted to be able to spend my healing lilies on other damage spells besides just using them on the healing spells, because I think right now it's optimal on your white mage to use your I almost said willies. You better use your willies. You don't want to get, all filled up, all packed up. You gotta let those things out, right? But completely, we are way off. I completely forgot what I was talking about. Oh my god, dude. Sorry.
Exact same filler rotation for your entire...
Okay, what I was trying to say was you should use your lilies on the damage spells. Okay, that's it. There should be more damage spells for the lilies. That's all I'm trying to say.
Your existence without anything new or stimulating being added except for a fancy new healing button that will solve the exact same problem that you can already solve. The closest thing that we have to any variance on this right now is energy drain optimizations on Scholar and Phlegma Balls, which is just a button that you have to manage slightly more. And despite Sage being a side grade Scholar,
is Phlegma Balls like willy management?
it somehow feels like it gives it more depth, while also making it painfully obvious how ludicrously shallow healing has become. As I've said earlier, healers have changed a lot over the years.
Yeah.
Despite this, the thing that hasn't changed very much at all is fight design. Encounters do not output damage at insanely high volumes unless you're running Savage at minimum item level or ultimate content in general.
Yeah.
And even then, it doesn't matter that incoming damage can be fairly high when it is very calculated and consistent with each encounter. Learning fights while healing can be kind of cool, but you will eventually boil it down to where you plan to place your cooldowns and go back to mashing one button.
That's right. That's been a big criticism of the way healing works in this game that I've heard from people that are really invested in it, is that there's not a lot of like consistent outgoing damage, like big damage all the time on the group, and you just need to keep up. It's going to take everything you have to keep up with all the fucking damage that's going out. Instead, it's more like, oh, well, we know there's going to be a big raid wide at the start of the fight. There's going to be another one in like, I don't know, 60 seconds from now. There's going to be another one at this point, and there's another one at this point. And so basically it just becomes a job of you look at all your cooldowns, you map out, like putting the pieces, puzzle pieces into the puzzle, the little jigsaw puzzle, figuring out which cooldown I'm going to use where. And then once you figure all that out, you're pretty much good. And you can pretty much coast spamming glare outside of that. So, like, it can be fun for people who are, you're new, you're struggling, you're figuring out where to put all those things, like where all the pieces fit in that puzzle. But then once you do, it can become a little bit stale for healers. Now, I know that, actually, I think that people were even complaining about that for the new Ultimate that came out, the new Dragonsong Ultimate. I feel like there were healers that were saying that they wished that there had been, even for the new hardest ever Ultimate Dragonsong, more consistent outgoing damage that you have to just be keeping up with all the time. Because I mean, you play a healer, you want to heal, and but as a healer, it's really optimal to use your OGCDs even to heal. Like, you don't even want to use your main cast to heal. At least I know on White Mage, you want to try to use your main cast spells for doing damage, and use your OGCD spells to heal. Like, fit in the heals between the cracks, right?
Simply begging for something to go wrong so that you have something new and interesting to do instead of going through the exact same repetitive motion. And I know exactly what you're going to say next, which is, hang on, isn't that what DPS players do? The answer is yes, but your non-stop filler rotation on DPS and even tanks is infinitely more interesting than what you get to do on healer. Even Warriors core GCDs, which get made fun of, are way more complex than pressing one singular button. What's so stupid about this is that Final Fantasy XIV fight design has been this way forever. It was born and raised in a system in which healers had like 3 more DPS buttons. And the idea of contributing to DPS checks as a core part of playing healer is baked into the system. It is baffling that there is such an outright refusal to embrace the way the game is fucking designed and working. People are usually okay with fight mechanics and how they can resolve them. It is insane to me that the proposed solution to the problem of making healers' kits 99% healing is changing the encounters, not only because if it's not broken, don't fix it, but also because you can't change any of the old fights.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true, actually.
The old ultimates that people still like to go and clear. So even if you manage to overhaul the entire fight design system in this game to make it so that random healing is required, or make healing output much more important, you still invalidate all of the content that came out before. Which is just like, what is going to be easier? Making the DPS rotations to healers ever so slightly more interesting at close to maximum level? Or completely changing an entire part of the way that your design team makes fights and encounters?
It's a really good point. I mean, I didn't really think about it before, because sometimes people say, oh, well, I play a healer, I want to heal more. I play a healer, I want to spend more time healing, that's why I picked a healer. Because like I have actually a fair bit of experience from healing in World of Warcraft, and in that game I feel like I spent a shitload more time actually healing. Because there is more consistent damage that goes out in a boss fight that you have to always sort of be keeping up with, and you squeeze in the damage in between all the major healing that you do. But in Final Fantasy 14, that model just cannot work. It cannot work, it won't work, it won't ever work. Like, that, it will never be that way because of the fight design. The fights, like, they cannot go back and change every single fight. So that you're spending a shitload of time doing like suddenly we changed every boss in the game, so it's constantly shitting out damage on you. Like, it's gonna be a nightmare for new players. It won't work. It's not reasonable. It's not a reasonable ask at all. And I never really thought about that before, actually. It's a pretty eye-opening video because I feel like that's a pie in the sky ask. It's not possible. But what is possible is what he just said. Making the damage rotation a little tiny bit more engaging, or honestly, I think I doubt the devs would ever agree, but man, I just want old astrology back. I'm like, what about just more interesting buffs, like different kinds of buffs, more interesting buffs? Could they do that? I mean, I feel like they really do not want to. I feel like it's just not a direction they want to go in at all. Maybe it's too hard to balance with new jobs and stuff. But I can only dream and member.
You know what will be surprising, though? I don't even want to remove the one DPS button playstyle. Let one healer have this stupid-ass rotation, probably white mage. That way people don't lose their unga-bunga roll. Embrace some uniqueness where this game allows you to. Unique healing buttons...
Yeah, let there be one class... Let there be one job where you just have one spell. Like, one damage spell and one dot. But even in that case, I feel like you need some kind of extra thing to spend lilies on that's a damage spell. Like, I think it would feel better.
Do not work super well. That's why everything is about unique ways to deal damage in this game. Part of what makes Sage so incredibly frustrating isn't that it's bad to play, but that it's literally a functional equivalent scholar with some very, very minor differences. Cardia is just Fey Blessing, but instead of a stupid fairy just casting it for fun, it's something that you target and proc by pressing your DPS buttons. They did not create a healer that heals by doing damage, they created a scholar that heals by proxy on every broil cast instead of having a pet. I don't hate Sage, but I hate what it represents. An unwillingness to put...
Do you guys agree with that? Because I haven't played Sage that much at all. Do you think that is actually true? That it's not... what everybody hoped that it would be, which is something more like Disc Priest, where as you do damage, you're also doing healing, but it's actually more like... What do you think? Is he right? 51%? Right? Okay. By the way, what was the results of that poll from before? Is Sage fun? Yes. 53%. So the same people that agreed that it's like, it's fun. 53% people say, yeah, it's fun. 30% of people did not try it. 17% of people say, no, it's just straight up not fun. It's easier scholar. It's a step in the right direction, but not a 100%. They tried to disguise Cardia as something new, but it's correct. No pet suffering. It can be fun and have major issues too. Yeah, that is definitely true. Scholar with extra steps. Okay.
Healers in a direction that they have been in the past. You removed what I would consider to be the most frustrating things to manage on this role, which was old aggro, old protect, and good old cleric stance. We don't need to go all the way back to old Heaven's War DPS check bullshit, fuckface, max DPS scholar, or perish shit. I just don't want every single healer to feel exactly the same at the core. Because
And that's a boomer FF reference. Who's even going to remember that? Really? Like, nobody knows what you're talking about.
Turns out this game is designed with the healers DPSing about 90% of the time at a minimum, and the jobs are not designed with this core principle in mind. I sure love mashing a single button for 9/10 of my playtime, which is also why I never want to have auto combo forced down my throat if they ever decided to implement it, because I will be bored to fucking tears if I am just sitting there pressing a single button for the majority.
That's the thing. Like, it's so crazy to me that people are begging for the auto combo, where it's just one button to press all your combo. Just like in PvP, people are asking for that. But it's so funny because usually a lot of the same people that are asking for that are like, my job doesn't have enough buttons. Like, I don't have enough to do. But also, can you give me one button for my combo, please?
Of my gameplay. That's the real reason of why I don't like XIV combo, but if you make it optional, fine. On top of Sage existing, we also had to sacrifice Nocturnal Sect Astro for it, a job that has a playstyle around being able to utilize off GCD shielding and felt distinct from Scholar.
So Santi is actually amazing healer player that I've raided with a bit. Santi has just said in the chat, I think the only thing WoW have better than FFXIV, healing. Healing in WoW is way more fun. I regretfully agree. I hate to agree, but I kind of do, just because I like to spend more time healing, and that's what you're doing more in WoW. Well, we'll talk about more about that after this video. I'll talk more about my experience with healing in WoW and why I liked it, and maybe we'll give some like food for thought of things that might make healing in Final Fantasy XIV a little bit more engaging. It's just I have a really short attention span. It's hard to keep me interested in something, keep me focused on something. Having a lot to do helps, and having a lot of healing to do. I mean, I feel like I often get this feeling where I'm like, if I'm just gonna stay in there casting damage spells, then why won't I just go play a damage dealer? I'm just gonna be standing around spending most of my time casting damage, doing damage. It wouldn't be more fun to do way more damage?
Wasn't optimal, but man, it was viable, and it was also fun for everybody who.
Yeah, that's my FXV hot take. Like, there was a while ago we had this Twitter thread going around asking everybody their hot takes. I think that's probably the hottest take I have. Just that I prefer WoW healing. Oh my god.
Enjoyed playing it. It is
more healing but less mechanics. I mean, yeah, true.
Removed, all in the name of having 2 regen and 2 shield.
I know I'm pausing him like every 0.5 seconds, but imagine a game with like that kind of heavy duty healing and the amazing battle and raid design of Final Fantasy XIV with like heavy mechanics, and you also have to spend like, I feel like they just have to completely reimagine healing in, it's just not going to change. I feel like the basis of what healing is in this game will not change, it being more focused on optimizing how much damage you can put out. Like, I don't know if that's going to change.
Healers in the metagame so that you can have one of each in a high-end duty finder specifically. Wow. Because what? Having 3 shield healers and 2 regen healers would throw the game out of balance? Tell me this. What do you plan to do when you want to add a new healer into the game? Are you going to add in 2 healers at the same time to keep this perfect ratio? Or are you going to release one type and accept the imbalance? Meaning that Nocturnal Sect was removed for absolutely no fucking reason. Just ask yourself the question of what are they going to do when they add in one more healer, and you can already see the problem.
But it was to make shield healers and regen healers because these guys can't work together. So we gotta have them separate. We can't figure out how to make them work together well, so we're just gonna have separate categories of healers.
Talk about an insane lack of foresight for a game that is claiming to be making expansions for the next 10 years. If you really wanted to make this high...
They aren't making those yet, though, right? No, they are. They are working on... Yeah, they are.
And duty finder shit work of requiring 1 shield and 1 regen healer, you could allow Astro players to pick which sect they prefer before going to queue and move on.
Yeah, why didn't they just do it that way? Thinking back on it, why make astrology the pure regen healer instead of just altering it so you could choose? That would have been really neat.
It is not that fucking hard. Imagine putting a
Oh,
little...
maybe it is. You don't know. Maybe it is hard. Maybe they thought about it and said, there's just no way. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on over there. I'm not a dev.
little bit more work in to make your player base happy, even though double shield and double regen were and are still viable. Fuck, it's sometimes even meta. I joked about Nocturnal Sect being removed, but man, I really can't see a good reason why, other than making the job of the development team easier, with the consequence of sacrificing a small amount of uniqueness that the game still provided. The only other thing I will mention about this is that healing is a balance of outputting adequate healing and keeping up damage. This game is notorious for turbo casuals who only heal and don't DPS after playing the game for 5,000 hours. That is very different than overhealing a fuckload when you're new to healing. But this game is also notorious for...
But I mean, like, if you're a new... Listen, if you're a new player and you're not that plugged in to, like, the balance guides and guides on how to play, and you're just like, you're trying to figure out what to do based on looking at your abilities, and like maybe you don't know a lot about weaving and all that shit, like it's understandable that so many players do end up thinking, oh well, I'm a healer, so I should just be pressing as much healing buttons as I can. I like pressing my healing buttons, so I'm gonna press my healing. Like, I don't like, I'm not surprised. Your goal is actually to do as much damage as you can. Like, that doesn't seem like the logical conclusion that a brand new player would probably make. They probably think they're doing a pretty good job if they're doing as much healing as possible.
High-end healers that drop their whole party who fucked up a mechanic when they could have just lived through it with an extra heal.
You said not new players, people who play all the time. Oh, okay, yeah. I think maybe I misunderstood. You said it's not just new players. It's people who play all the time but are just resigned to not caring. Like people who play a lot but they don't give a shit is what you're saying. I mean, that's fair to criticize for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Even if you want to be an absolute fucking Machiavellian monster about it, it is going to take you less time to get a re-clear with one shitty pull than two pulls where one was shittier than the other. People already tunnel vision super hard when they shouldn't, and that's not a result of healers having a complicated rotation, but a result of basic incompetency. Giving a little more to manage is not going to make them any fucking worse when they can already be close to rock bottom. We've managed to...
Sounds a little bit tilted here. It sounds a little bit salty.
Go full circle, though. Where healer play rate was originally low because it was too hard, and now the play rate is super low because it is so fucking boring. Would there be people who would be sad about losing their current playstyle that they like? Yeah, but it didn't seem to be a problem when fucking over healing players in the...
But it can only be one or the other. It can either be too hard, or it will be too boring. There's no in between. There is no in between. It must be one or the other. Previously it was too hard. Now, too boring. It is impossible to create a job that is not one of those things.
Past. Yeehaw. Anyways, I think that's enough ranting on this topic for now. I will finish by saying this.
Point made.
Give Scholar players 2 dots, make one of them a hard cast, and give them Tri-Disaster, and make Aetherflow reset the cooldown of said Tri-Disaster.
Okay.
Let White Mage stay exactly the same so that we can meme on it for being the baby healer. Bring back Nocturnal Astro, bring back AoE dots, and make Sage have some whack-ass, overcomplicated DPS rotation that baffles people's minds, and see if they embrace it or not. Because with how safe that job was on release, it was stale before I even started playing it.
Oh man, do you know? I feel like there would be a huge shitstorm if they massively changed Sage to be way more complex than it already is. Like, it's fun to dream about that, right? In no universe is that even close to a realistic desire. Like, there's absolutely no universe in which that is going to occur. In which they're going to look at a job and say, you know what we need? We need to make this way more complicated and way more complex than it is. Because that is not what they like doing. Even to jobs that are, in fact, they're looking at jobs that are not even hard right now. And saying, you know what we need to do? Rework it. Like, we need to make it less complex. We need to simplify it and streamline it a little bit more. That's where we're going. I feel like adding a couple more damage buttons, that's probably what you can hope for.
Someone complains that they need to be rewarded with more DPS for their complicated job. Simply tell them that the reward is being able to have fun and not being bored out of their fucking mind. Shut the fuck up about a whole 2% DPS variance. Now let's get out there and go back to mashing one button with drool rolling down our face.
Okay. Wow, yeah, he was really mad in this video. He was really mad, but there were some excellent points made in it. And this video did cause me to think about healing in a different way. He did shine light on a different perspective that I hadn't considered before, because I guess I haven't really been thinking too deeply about the topic, because I fell off healer a while ago. But the fact is that job design and battle design are very, very much intertwined in this game. They're pieces of the puzzle that fit together. And for that reason, we cannot expect healers to change to be more heavily focused around mashing all your healing buttons. It's just not going to be that. It's going to be more about a relatively unintimidating barrier to entry for every healer, and now every job, but every healer, and working out what's going to be the optimal cooldown to use at the optimal time. That's what it is. Like working out your rotation and where things fit in your rotation. Like so many things in this game do feel like just big pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, and your job is to figure out where things go in it, right? And so it's a good video, but
Greetings, Trout.
you said it's been proven people don't like the high complicated classes. People don't mind some complex, but take Dragoon. It was memed on, but still used in Realm Reborn. Had a big drop off in Heavensward and Stormblood as it got bloated and overly complex. And then in Shadowbringers, when they simplified it while keeping some complex, people went back to it. I think they probably do make some design decisions on jobs based on the player retention numbers that they see. You know, I think that probably the most popular jobs in the game have historically been the ones that are easier, the ones that are simpler. That's the jobs that people tend to gravitate to, because they feel like the reality is that the majority of players do not want to lose themselves in a really complex thing. But that doesn't mean that those more complex jobs can't exist or shouldn't exist. I think there's a place for them, and that's why I'm literally will not shut up about astrology from Stormblood. Like, I'm never going to shut up about it ever, because I loved it. Yeah, it was complex. Yeah, it was a job that was not recommended to new players, but there was something really special about it being so unique and having so many different unique buffs to offer people. Tag said the thing with this video is that he puts a lot of focus on why a lot of healer players are mad. He is genuinely frustrated. Yeah, you can tell, like, he's actually frustrated. Somebody in the chat a second ago said, like, he's obviously really invested in this, so it makes sense that he's so upset. You said, I also think people want to say he's wrong because he's mad at the game. Healing has been an issue for so long. Yeah, I don't want people to, like, because I think towards the end of the video, he got more upset and he got more frustrated, and people were like, oh, well, he's just mad, so you're not going to listen to him. Because there was a lot of good points made, honestly, in the video. And so I don't want people to write it all off as like, oh, well, he's just mad and he's too invested and he's like tries too hard. You know, it's not like that. I think that there was a lot of things said here that had a lot of merit. Healing's been an issue. Seeing them make it worse has been it's understandably frustrating. And he said devs shouldn't make every job enjoyable to everyone. They should deliver diversity and variety to various playstyles. I definitely agree. I mean, look at almost any game where you like pick your hero, like you pick your class, pick your job. And a lot of these types of games, whenever you look at the job, even at like the starting screen, it will say, difficulty stars, right? It'll show you like this job has like, or this hero has 1 star difficulty, and this one has 3 stars difficulty, or this one has 4 stars difficulty. I think even Guild Wars 2 does that. Like I said, I told y'all I've been messing around in that a little bit, and it's nice to have that, to have like, and make it clear to someone when they begin, like how much effort and how much thought they're gonna put into it. I think making that clear to the player up front could probably solve some of that issues a little bit. Maybe it's more that people don't want to start on a job. They have no idea how complex it's going to be, and they don't like getting the bait and switch later on, finding out, oh, well, I expected this to be really easy and it's more complex, or I expected this to be more complex and it's really easy. Like, I think making that more clear to players at the start could improve things a great deal. Actually, let me give you a link to this video. But I completely agree that there should be like a diversity of difficulties levels in jobs. There's a difference between hard and janky gameplay though. Yeah, absolutely. Was not a fan of Dragoon animation logs. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. You don't want to have to play around jank and have that be your difficulty. Healer is only boring to either people who are so good on healing that it becomes boring, or people who only play casual content where 50% of your kit is unnecessary. But wouldn't you say that it feels bad to become really good at healer and your reward for becoming really good is that your job gets more boring because there's less to do? Like, I feel like that's anticlimactic. I said that I would talk a little bit about my experience healing in World of Warcraft, why I liked healing in that game a lot. Like, I had started healing in WoW actually way back in the original Wrath of Lich King. I was playing Resto Druid through ICC with my raid, and I loved it. I had a really good time doing that. I've messed around on Resto Druid here and there over the years, and it's a job that I always end up going back to because I feel like there's so many different options for me. There's so many different buttons that I can press. I'm heavily focused on healing most of the time. I have dots. I have AoE attacks. In a dungeon, I can shapeshift into a cat and do damage on a cat. Like, I have really high mobility. I can run around, sprint. I could do stampeding roar, get everybody to run really. It's basically like expedience I can put on everybody. I also think that in World of Warcraft, managing mana is more interesting. Like, you have Mana Tide Totem on Shaman, which I played a lot of Resto Shaman, which I love as well. Mana Tide is awesome. It feels great to put out. Innervate as a druid is awesome. Like, I love doing that. I miss mana regeneration abilities that we used to have in this game. Like, bards and machinists used to be able to do that. In Final Fantasy, we pretty much just have lucid dreaming for your mana management, and but as a white mage, I barely have issues with it. Like, you have so many spells that cause 0 MP, and that's supposed to be like a way for you to manage your mana. But I kind of prefer something that just regenerates a bunch of mana. Like, I think that's just more exciting and more fun than like jobs that cause, spells that cause 0 mana. I'd enjoy healing a lot less if 90% of my GCs were healing instead of damage. See, yeah, probably even quit healing or something else. Right now, healing, or at least white mage, is exactly what I'd want. Doing damage while weaving in support. I don't think staring at people's health bars would be a more fun option. See, I think that probably a lot of healers would agree with you, Eggy, or if not, the majority of healers would agree, because that's the type of healing that this game has always been about. And that's just like, if you don't like that style of healing that I'm describing, where you're spending most of your time healing, you're probably not going to be that invested in healing in this game, which is why I'm not. You almost never see me heal in this game, because I prefer the opposite approach, like mostly healing, a little damage. But if you like lots of damage, a little healing, then you're probably going to enjoy healing in the game already. And that's another reason that even if it were possible, it's just like, it's not gonna happen. It's unlikely that they would ever rework healing entirely to make it so that you would be spending more time healing, because there's so many people that are invested in the way that it currently works. So it's not changing. It's definitely not changing for lots of reasons. There is still, like, I think that there is a real issue right now of a lack of healing, a lack of healers. I saw this tweet from Arthurs, which I think we touched on it a little bit earlier, but yeah, Arthurs said, even in JP, there's no healers. Sag. If this keeps up in 7.0, they'll have to make healing such a brain-dead task that I'll be willing and able to do it. I don't think it's that healing is too difficult, more that healer damage profiles are hideously boring. That is the big complaint right now, and a reason why people think that everybody's falling off of healing right now. I think it's a problem that they're not going to be able to address until the next expansion. You have a couple of DPS spells on every healer, like 2 or 3. And so for me in FF14, I usually have the most fun healing a dungeon where everything's going really bad and everybody's really bad. Maybe that's what it's built for. Like, and maybe that is what it's currently built for. It's for situations where everybody is playing like shit. Because that's when it's most fun. Like, the more optimized your group gets, and the better everybody gets at doing the content, the less you're gonna have to do. So maybe they just want to make a lot of space for that. For everybody playing like shit. Just saying. I think that people shit on healers too much in PF, which is why healer mains don't want to heal this tier. Every DPS that dies from raid wide, because they're not MIT, blames and kicks the healer. Yeah. Communication is really hard in PF. It's hard to communicate when everybody needs the MIT, and that's something that you do kind of need to plan out in the current content. Healing is also thankless this tier, being easy targets for others failing basic mitigation setups. Yeah, that's what Goggle Pocket just pointed out here, and that sounds true. Gonna be honest, Yoshi and the devs need a reality check. That what they're doing is not viable long-term for the game. What they're doing to healers is actively killing the game. People are growing more frustrated. Honestly, like, it sucks to hear people that are really invested in healing this upset. Like, that's why I think it's healthy for the game to have a variety of difficulty and jobs. Because you want to keep it's not possible to always keep everybody happy, but you can offer really different things for different people. Another thread this is from 8 days ago, so this is a pretty hot topic right now. There's a thread, people asking for ideas to spice up the healer damage rotations. Like, just various ideas that people had. Astrodyne finisher where you blow up a fucking planet on them. I like that. That's a very good idea. For me, the reason there's no healers in PF is because all fights have mechanics based on healers and people don't want to think. They wait for the healer to move to the safe or right spot. So a lot of pressure on healers. Are you calling me out right now, Sandy? I'm like, people waiting for the healer to go to the right spot and following the healer there. What? Oh my god. Imagine. Oh my goodness. Make sure that you mark the healers on 1 and 2. Can you guys just make sure that you mark the healers for 1 and 2? Just, that's all I'm asking. Just to mark them? Just make sure that they're marked, because no reason, it's just for better visibility. So everyone knows where the healers are. It's just good to know where they are. Why is there such a shortage of in PF of healers this year? This is my first year raiding solo through Party Finder. I've gone through a few fights through Party Finder in the past, but have mainly been in a static. When I would do stuff in PF in the past, it was always waiting on tanks, but even then it would only be for like a half-hour max. I decided to raid with some friends this year and would PF with them. I didn't have any issues finding healers while progging the fights, but on re-clears, it's turned into waiting for hours for healers to join. Last week, it took 4 hours to even get into P5S. What? Last night, doing re-clears, it took an hour for P5S and 2 for P6. What? Luckily, the group decided to stay for 7. The healer shortage is consistent across all 3 NA data centers. I don't understand. Why is there such a shortage of healers right now? They seem to be the most balanced role. It doesn't seem to be an issue while farming the new X. I've asked my friends who only have raided in PF, and they said that waiting this long for healers wasn't a thing before this year. Oh my god. What's their eye level set to? Yeah, seriously. With the wrong co-healer or tanks, they can get very rough. But hasn't that always been true? Join to static. Mitigation. Yeah, just, you could join a static. But not everybody can. Like, not everybody has that, like, consistent schedule. You got shift workers who struggle to fit into a static schedule. I'm a healer main. I clear it on healer, rejoin on DPS. Why? Why though? Mitigation is awful from the deeps. They revere me as gods when I join a PFS Sage. They wait for so long.
I'm spoiled because usually people are willing to help me out when I'm on stream. I understand making jobs easier to make people intro to them, but I thought the point was to start small as they level up. They expand their skill set more and more. So when you remove complicated mechanics, yeah, you make the job easier. But you have the risk to ruin the job for all the people who got it to max level. That's happened with a couple jobs already, where they did remove mechanics that people had already been familiar with and liked the complexity of, but then people got really mad when they changed it.